Good morning, good morning. This morning, Burnout at Breakfast, live from the shed as always, but this morning, the Burnout at Breakfast is talking about the biggest cause of burnout and the equation underneath it. That's what I'm going to talk to you for the next kind of 20 minutes, half hour or so. The biggest cause of burnout and the equation underneath it. As always, if you are joining me live, hopefully we are live this morning across LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're watching live on any of those, give me a good morning. Let me know where you're joining from. And as always, if you've got questions, just ask as we go through the chat. If you're watching on replay, as I know many of you have been doing, again, make sure your comments, your questions go in the chat. I will answer all of those for you. But this morning, as I said, the biggest cause of burnout and the equation underneath it. And why I want to talk to you about this morning is because I can see what is likely to happen if more people start talking about this number one cause of burnout, as was reported a couple of weeks ago. And the reason I want to preempt this and talk about it and share it is because having been working in the burnout space now, working with burnout, having survived 2 periods of burnout myself, the first that made me really seriously ill, the second one that almost killed me, and having spent more than a decade joining the dots, researching, studying. I've coached over 700 leaders. I have written the books. I have spoken on stages to tens of thousands of leaders. I've trained tens of thousands of leaders in varying different guises all over the kind of last 12, 13 years. And I see what happens on social media platforms. I see what happens in the coaching space. I see what happens in workshops and masterclasses and leadership discussions when a new study about burnout is published. When we get numbers to hold on to, when there is a new stat that tells us this is the thing, that becomes the focus of everybody. And all of a sudden, everybody becomes the expert in trying to fix that one thing. But with this latest study, this latest published study and the article that came with it, I'll make sure I link both below. The same thing is going to happen if the experts, I'm going to continue to do that every time we say expert today, because I know what's going to happen if everybody, org design, org change, leadership, management, coaches, if all of the people from all of those areas start to focus on this one thing, it's going to make a difference. Absolutely. It's going to make a difference to individuals. It is going to make a difference to the workplace, but it is not going to end burnout. It's not going to end burnout. And that's why really I want to start with this morning, right? I want to caveat that. I want us to start with all of this because, as I said, the danger, I've been in this game long enough to see that every time there's a new stat, every time there's a new study, every time there's new research, everybody then begins to focus on that one thing and assume that that one thing is then the fix. And yet we continue to see burnout numbers rise. And I want to say again, every single one of those burnout numbers is a person. Every single one of those burnout numbers is a person, right? Every single stat, every single number is a person. That's what I want us to think about. Okay, right. Let me get this study up for you. So I'm going to, she says, if my screen continues to work. Why is it every time I do this, the tech then decides it's not gonna play for me? There is an article that I've had open and now it's like, no, I don't want to play the ball, Kelly. Right. I'm going to drop this link for you in the comments of this chat so that you can see this one, and then I'll grab the study for you and I will share the full study, or what's available from the full study publicly. I'll get that shared for you anyway. Okay, so let's refer to this, shall we, so that I know that I'm giving you the right information from the research. I always like to make sure that I'm giving you the right level of information. Okay. This is now like, you've reached your article limit. Right. This says there is this. It's an article that's in Inc. magazine. And it concludes by saying it is a 60-year study, that has researched over 800,000 workers. And in interviewing 800,000 workers, it says that we have found the number one cause of burnout within this study. Okay. Again, with caveating all of this for you, this research looked at 3 workplace stressors, right? Just 3. So that in itself, again, we need to understand it only looked at 3 areas. And those 3 areas that it looked at were having too much to do, and therefore like having lots and lots of competing demands. So that was the first one, right? Having too much to do, competing demands, and then unclear expectations, right? So having too much to do, having competing demands, and then having unclear expectations. They were the 3 areas that it looked at. And the unclear expectations, therefore, like a lack of clarity, having unclear expectations in the job, that's what they're saying was the number one cause out of 800,000 workers. That's what they're saying. So it wasn't about too much workload. It wasn't about competing priorities. It was about the lack of clarity. It was about it was about unclear expectations. Okay. Now, again, here's where I want to caveat some of this. I understand why that study will have taken place. Okay. Because the research, all of the studies, everything really, not all of the studies, but when burnout was starting to be talked about, when we started saying that burnout was a thing right back in the 70s, the focus was on work. Now, it started with workers in caring professions, but really since the 70s until the World Health Organization definition was published in 2019, all of the focus on burnout was about the workplace. And we're seeing this play out now, right? Because we're now seeing lots and lots of different words being tagged onto burnout, right? Workplace burnout, leadership burnout, employee burnout. I saw a post last week about endometriosis burnout. My mum messaged me on Saturday morning to say I had an appointment with my diabetic specialist last week, and they said I've got diabetes burnout. And I'm seeing us talk about caring, but carers burnout, and parental burnout, and ADHD burnout, and autistic burnout, and ADHD burnout. And I'm just seeing more and more and more and more and more and more things being tagged onto burnout. And I know that is happening with the best of intentions, because for 50, 60 years, we've been looking at burnout from the workplace perspective. Now, I suppose when I reached burnout and I wanted to understand it more, I wanted to join these dots. I really wanted to understand firstly what it was that I had been through, but I also, particularly after my second and the death of my replacement, that's where I really thought, like, I've got to do something with this. And all of the dots that I began to join, none of what I was reading about burnout was explaining burnout to me. So I thought, well, it can't have been burnout then, because what I was seeing about burnout wasn't describing my experience. And yet I had 2 consultants I had to have linked to my first burnout. I had 7 months of debilitating pain that ended in having 2 operations for 2 physical health conditions in 48 hours. When I went for the checkups for both of those appointments, both consultants mentioned this word to me, burnout. And initially I was like, you don't know what you're talking about, because at the time, right, 2013, I was probably where still some of you are now, right? I thought it was just stress and it wasn't me, right? People like me, high performers, high achievers, people that got shit done, people that were brilliant at their job. Like, if you want something doing, give it to Kelly, right? I'd had over an 8-year period, I'd had 7 different promotions. I'd added over £100,000 to my salary. I was winning awards all over the place. I was making a difference. I was making a change. I was doing everything that I possibly could. So to then have these two consultants, like, I think this is the conditions, the issues that we need to talk about burnout, right? And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Not me, right? I that doesn't happen to me. But as I then kind of was going into and then coming out of my second, I was like, maybe this is it. Because again, right, when we don't learn our lesson the first time, we don't make the changes, right? Things are just going to keep repeating, right? The lessons will keep presenting until we change what needs to be changed. But I was like, okay, right? I now need to start paying attention. The death of my replacement was then like that was like glaring, like we desperately need to do something about this. But everything that I was reading about burnout, everything that I was seeing about it, everything that I was thinking about, because again, remember, if we think about it from the 70s, everything that we've been looking at from burnout has been from the lens of psychology. But how did that explain how I'd ended up having 2 operations in 48 hours? If it was just, again, if we look at the World Health Organization definition, right, that tells us it's just unmanaged workplace stress, that means that we withdraw a little bit from work, we become a little bit cynical. How had that created physical health conditions? Where had the gut issues come from? Where had the mental health issues come from? Where had all of this stuff come from if that was the only definition of burnout? And so that was where, I as I said, I kept joining all of these dots. Okay, so if it's, why was this happening? Why was this happening? Why was this happening? And the more that I began to share my own story, that's how I've ended up coaching as many leaders as I have, right? Over the last kind of 12, 13 years, coached over 700 people through burnout. Their experience of burnout isn't the textbook kind of World Health Organization definition. But this latest research, so 800,000 workers over a 60-year study, and what has come out of that is that the number one cause of burnout is unclear expectations in the workplace. My focus, again, has been joining all of these dots. That's my big thing. That's where I've created the burnout equation. That's where burnoutology has come from. And again, I think we're in danger, because if we then just say, well, let's just then make sure that everybody's got clear expectations at work, and then we think that's going to be the magic cure for burnout, and that is not going to be enough, because it doesn't solve the burnout equation. It doesn't answer all of the other issues that are linked to burnout. It doesn't impact, it doesn't talk about, it doesn't mention the cognitive impact of burnout. Right now, my research at the moment is about the long-term cognitive impact of burnout. This study doesn't focus on just giving somebody clear expectations in their job is not going to solve that. It's not going to solve the physical symptoms that many people are living with. It's not going to stop the health issues, the physical health issues, the lifelong health issues and health challenges and illnesses that are coming as a result of the burnout that is happening. So I said, I understand it, but if we own what I just know we're going to see this study, this is going to start being talked about. Everybody's going to think, we'll just give more people more clarity at work, and we think that's going to fix burnout. That is not going to be enough to fix burnout. It's just not. And that's where I want us to just really, really get clear on. That this study is talking to us about burnout from a workplace perspective, but again, only looking at 3 factors. And it's very easy, isn't it, when we see huge headlines, when we see huge reports, when we see huge stats, we then begin to see more experts that tag onto that and then start talking about it, right? They'll be on stages, this is what we need, this is what we need. Again, we'll have people that, job design, org design, workplace design, we'll have coaches, we'll have leadership experts, we'll have CEOs. Everybody's going to try to solve. Let's just ensure then that everybody has clarity. Like, let's make the expectations clear, but it's not going to be enough to stop burnout. It's not. And again, I want us to be able to challenge that and talk about that and share enough of that, because if we truly want to end burnout, we have to fix. We have to solve the burnout equation, and we need to take both sides of that equation when we are solving it. Now, just want to, before I go into the burnout equation, I want to come back to really why I'm seeing so many words being added onto burnout. As I said, right, we're talking about workplace burnout, employee burnout, leadership burnout, endometriosis burnout, diabetic burnout, neurodivergent burnout. We're adding all of these different words on the front of it. And I believe that we're doing it because all of us know, when we look at the kind of symptoms of burnout, if you like, we're adding all of these words onto it because the definition as it stands right now is not enough. When the focus of the definition is purely on workplace, and then you get people like me, it's like, it didn't give me the definition. It didn't explain anything for me. It didn't give me the description. Again, I'd started doing this work kind of 6 years before the World Health Organization definition was published. But where we miss so much information is in 2020. Now, there was a lot going on for all of us in 2020, right? But in 2020, there was a research study that concluded, and this is what has created the BAT, right? It's a burnout assessment tool. I don't know in how many languages it's in now, but it's in a lot of languages. But the burnout assessment tool, most people are still using the Maslow burnout inventory, so the MBI, which again focuses a lot more on the workplace. If we look at the burnout assessment tool and the research project that was associated with that project, that work, those findings concluded that burnout was not just related to the workplace. And that one for me was the the kind of line in the sand. It's like, I knew this, right? This is what I've been seeing and feeling and understanding and researching for all of these years. Now, of course, we can get, kind of bias, can't we, in terms of our decisions. Lots of the world is looking at all of the Maslow work. Lots of the world is looking at the kind of MBI. Lots of the world is saying burnout is just workplace related. I'm on the other side of the fence, like it's not just workplace related. I don't believe it ever has been. And I think we still need to be doing so much more to be solving it and understanding it and answering it. But if you want more information on that, go and have a look at the difference between the World Health Organization definition and the research project that created the BAT, right? Type in burnout assessment tool, you can get the academic papers, you can get the research, and you can get the tool itself. Have a look at both of those comparisons, because if you're kind of only focusing on one or the other, have a look at the two of them, see what the differences are, and again, see what understands it. I know that my burnout was definitely attributed to by the toxic workplace that I was in, without a shadow of a doubt. And workplace burnout, if we like, right, burnout as a whole is still, and again, this project, this latest research, right, 800,000 people. We can't discount 800,000 people is a big number. And yet we do not have to be employed and we do not have to be in the work in order to experience burnout. And even if we are employed and we're in a workplace, it may not be the workplace that is contributing to the burnout in the first place. That's where I want us to think more widely, right? That's what I kind of, when I say I'm joining the dots on it, that's what I'm talking about. If we only focus on workplace and we only focus on the World Health Organization definition, we're only focusing on the psychological lens and on one aspect. Now, the burnout equation that's come out of all of my work and the work that I've been doing in this for, again, 13 years, and all of the studies and the research and the training and the coaching and all that kind of stuff, the burnout equation that I have come to is this, and this is a key part of the work in and around burnoutology. But the burnout equation tells us this, that toxicity minus our sense of self equals burnout. Toxicity minus sense of self equals burnout. Now, toxicity doesn't just have to be workplaces. It might be work, it might be colleagues, it might be people, it might be relationships, it might be finances, it could be habits and thoughts and patterns and behaviors. Sense of self isn't just about self-esteem and confidence. It's about understanding our values, who we are, what our drivers, what gets us out of bed in the morning, our mission, our passion, who we are fundamentally are at our core. So this study, 800,000 workers, unclear expectations, absolutely fits into the toxicity side of the equation. And it might also link to that sense of self, right? Because if we've got unclear expectations at work, we don't know what we're doing, we might start to question our values and our purpose and our meaning and what are we doing here, right? What's the point of me being here? I've coached leaders that have had those unclear expectations, that lack of clarity within their, either from their board or directly from the other members of the exec team. I've been there, I've seen it, I've seen the damage. And there was other stuff at play. So again, I think this study is helpful. I think it's a big number, right? It's clearly a lot of work that has gone into it. It's a big understanding. But again, if we only begin to focus on that one point, we're missing the whole rest of the equation. If we only start to focus on that one thing, burnout is going to continue to grow. It is going to continue to rise. If we want to end burnout, we have to solve both sides of the burnout equation. We have to remove the toxicity and we have to increase our sense of self. That is how we are going to end burnout. Now, we can do that in organizations, we can do that in jobs, we can do that in our relationships, our friendships, we can do that with our finances, our habits, our thoughts, everything that we do in terms of how we live and work and breathe and function and communicate and collaborate, how we are in communities, how we are, that's how we do it. But as I said, I wanted to talk to you about this today because I saw this article come out last week and I was like, oh no, like this is going to be where everybody now begins to focus. Do we need to have better, clearer expectations in the workplace? Absolutely yes. Is that on its own going to be enough to solve burnout? No. I'm going to leave you there for today. I'd love your thoughts on this one. Do let me know. I'm going to leave you there. If you would like to be part of the future of burnout coaching, hit subscribe, give me a follow. And if you would like insights, emails, knowledge, if you'd like anything to help you develop your role, your part in the future of burnout coaching, then I'll pop the link below. You can hit subscribe and subscribe to my emails. I send emails Monday to Friday to my email subscribers, the coaches that will be the future of burnout coaching. So if you want to be part of that, I'll pop the link. You can subscribe to that below. I'm going to go and find, I'll make sure that I've got the study link, the link to the study, the link to the research. I'll pop that in the comments for you as well. But for now, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me. I am back next week, again, same time, 8 a.m. next Monday morning for the next Burnout at Breakfast. Do join me then again. If you can't join live, keep the comments coming, keep the insights, keep the feedback, comments, whatever it is that you want to share, pop those below. Yeah, if you want to be part of the future of burnout coaching, then hit subscribe, hit follow, and join the email list. I will be back with you again next week. Go and have an amazing rest of the week and an amazing Monday, and I'll see you all again soon.